we good? I'm ready. Very good. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ridgewood Village Council, Public Workshop, August 4th, 2021. The time is 7:30 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of the schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilwoman Perrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Reynolds.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Seaton.
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh.
Here.
Mayor Knudsen.
Here. Please join us for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join us for a moment of silence for our men and women serving our nation and all of our first responders. Thank you. Okay. We're going to start with public comment, not to exceed 3 minutes per person, total of 40 minutes. Please come up to the microphone, name and address. Come on. Make sure that button's on, Linda. It's on the green button on the bottom there.
Now do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening. I bet you never thought you'd see me again.
That's all right. Relaxing. Name and address for the name and address for the record, Linda.
Pardon me?
Name and address for the record.
Linda Scarpa, 569 Northern Parkway. The clock starts now, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
You're good.
I'm calling about, I kind of glanced over the budget, and I know this is a working budget meeting, correct? Is that the right terminology? Something like that?
What's the question?
A working meeting? Working
This is
session?
a workshop.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. Well, I kind of wanted to give it like a heads up of what I'd like you to address. And I'm talking about budget point number 6. I refer you to your agenda, and it says amend salary ordinance firefighters and fire supervisors. I just want to remind you the budget presented this fiscal year did not include the pension and health benefit contribution paid by Ridgewood taxpayers, and the entire budget for that department is $8 million. Since this is a working session to amend the salary ordinance for firefighters and fire supervisors, I thought it would be prudent to add the necessary transparency taxpayers deserve but did not get in the original presentation. Therefore, I'm requesting the following payments should be made and may be transparent in your amendment. Specifically, and I hope you take notes, total pension contribution per firefighter, total health benefit payment made for single coverage per firefighter, total health benefit made for family coverage per firefighter, and total contribution firefighters contribute, whether it is the required 30% as per Public Law 78 per firefighters. I know that that's still intact. Lastly, it would be prudent if any council member or elected official should, and I know there's not a rule on this, but it would be right to recuse yourself from a budget vote which involves a relative. I personally think, and many others would agree, it's the right thing to do. The second thing I'd like to comment on is the remote access for public comment, which I became accustomed to before I made an appearance here. I understand that this was started by Ramon Hache and Aronson, who supported the idea. I also understand it was not added to the agenda with no apparent reason. I personally think it's a mistake and should be corrected. The reasons are this. We're in a pandemic which is not going away, so people do not feel safe coming in person. Many people are on vacation. Perhaps they want to tune in and add in a remote comment, which would be nice. Also, taxpayers should be given the choice to protect their autonomy when speaking publicly and don't want to risk being harassed. Lastly, I'm sad to say that sometimes the lack of communication is not helping the community as a whole, so I think that needs to be improved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
Hi.
Siobhan Cram, Winograd, 274 Ivy Place. This is a particularly sad public comment for me to be back here. I'm here to, again, speak about the remote access. I was disappointed to see it not added to the agenda. I was equally disappointed to see all my emails requesting a status ignored and not answered. That's really disappointing. I feel like being an advocate and being an activist in town, it's very blazing to say I'm here advocating for the obvious, but I am. I'm here advocating for something that we should be doing as a town. It's embarrassing that we're not. As some of you know, my father, Paul Cran, had polio as a child, and before ADA laws came into effect, my whole family made events that were inaccessible accessible. It was something, that was traumatic to him as a child, and he survived it. And when he became fully disabled, we were grateful to governments that made accessibility more available to my family and others. I think about that my father set a tone that when there was a hurdle, you made it happen, you did things. I think about things in our own community that overnight our school board saw no technical hurdle and got 6,000 kids ranging from ages 5 to 18 online overnight. When Ramon responded to this, and literally overnight, and I compliment the IT staff, put the Zoom meetings into effect, it was amazing, and it was quick, and it was responsive, and the silver lining was you guys engaged the larger section of the community. Pulling the plug on this was short-sighted, it was tone-deaf, and it's not representative of our community. It's incredibly offensive to the people who need it to be accessible, and I think the fact that it has not gone on the agenda and all of the polite requests from the community as to where and why it's not added, the ignoring of that is making people feel terrible. With respect to the communication and the responses, I know you guys get a lot of emails. I know that some of you have really big jobs, and I really do appreciate both Bernadette and Pam always responding to me. But something's got to give. People are taking time to advocate for their issues, and people need to be responded to. If it's not going to be in writing and this is going to be a public forum where people are heard but not responded to, it's going to increase the frustration. Again, it's very rare that someone has the luxury to say, I'm advocating for the obvious. Please turn the remote access back on.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to close public comment, and I'm just going to say two things. First, I want to make the point that no individual on this dais implemented Zoom meetings during the pandemic. An entire village council made that decision. The village manager, this village council, the former village council, which included myself, the deputy mayor, and Councilwoman Walsh. We all collectively made that decision. So it was no one individual. Secondly, this is something we've been looking into, and I'm sure that the village manager, I understand she's going to respond to that. So we'll handle that when she speaks. And finally, just for the record, I recuse myself, and I'll take exception with the failure to have recognized that this has been going on for quite some time. I recuse myself from all discussions relative to fire or police. And I really do take exception with the suggestion that that doesn't happen. When we have ordinances and contract negotiations or any closed session, I recuse myself, and that doesn't include budget, and that is what is required by law. I am permitted to participate in budget. So with that, we will go on to the village manager's report.
Okay. The Welcome to Ridgewood event will run from now through September 5th. Beginning at 10 a.m. Saturday through 10 p.m. on Sunday, the Central Business District from North Walnut Street to Broad Street will be closed to vehicular traffic along East Ridgewood Avenue, including the side streets of Oak Street, Prospect Street, and Chestnut Street, which will create a pedestrian plaza. The retail businesses and outdoor dining in this area will be moved into the streets, and pedestrians will walk on the sidewalks. Come and shop at our many businesses, and then stop and enjoy a delicious snack or meal at one of our many eateries. There will be a Touch a Truck event with public safety vehicles on Saturday, August 21st, on the east side on East Ridgewood Avenue at Oak Street Corner from noon to 3 p.m. And there will also be a Follow the Yellow Brick Road theme on Saturday, September 4th. Starting tomorrow, the Chamber of Commerce will be holding its annual summer sidewalk sale on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. This is the perfect place to find great bargains at the end of the season. This is also the perfect time to enjoy one of our excellent eateries for a delicious snack, lunch, or dinner. Tomorrow evening, join the partnership of local medical groups at the Cashwell Memorial Shell on Veterans Field. From 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., there will be free blood pressure and glucose readings, nutritional education, and COVID testing with surprise giveaways. At 8:30 p.m., the free Music Under the Stars begins for an American Classics concert. You're all invited to learn the free medical information and followed by the musical presentation. Please bring a chair or blanket. The senior bus will be available on Thursday night, August 5th, and also Thursday night, August 12th. Call for a reservation. Next week, Tuesday and Thursday, will be the final performances at the Cashwell Memorial Shelf for the season. Graydon Pool is a perfect place to cool down. It is open for family, individual, senior citizen, or daily badges. Details of the pool hours of operation and fees are posted on the Recreation website. Graydon Pool is looking for certified waterfront lifeguards, as several lifeguards are returning to college and high school classes. We have posted this on social media, reached out to the YMCA and local colleges. Other municipalities in Bergen County who have bathing beaches like Graydon are experiencing the same situation. The pool is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. through September 6th. For more information, please contact Ridgewood Parks and Recreation at 201-670-5560. Currently, Graydon Pool will be closed on August 24th and August 30th through September 3rd. Part of this is due to the fact that the Ridgewood High School will be starting classes prior to Labor Day on September 1st. This has not happened since the 2015-2016 school year. We are hoping that there are certified waterfront lifeguards in the area who are willing to work at Graydon Pool for these days so that we may keep the pool open every day through Labor Day. Permitting public comment through call-in. There has been an inquiry regarding permitting public comment through a hybrid model. We actually have never had a hybrid meeting. We have either been remote or in person, but we've never had the combination of the two. The mayor has been working with the director of IT for months to determine the costs involved, including but not limited to a moderator at every meeting, the cost involved in integrating our technology, new legal ads for notice for the hybrid meetings, and longer minutes, which will all result in greater costs. They have had several meetings and will determine the best way to proceed. The Ridgewood Farmers Market is organized by the Chamber of Commerce and is open Sundays from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Farmers Market is located at the Ridgewood train station parking lot and provides Jersey fresh seasonal produce. It will be open every Sunday through the end of October. The Children's Sensory and Butterfly Garden, located behind the stable, just received a gift of the new outdoor musical instruments from the Ridgewood Conservancy for Public Lands. It's wonderful interactive enjoyment for children of all ages. Ridgewood Guild Movies, there will be complimentary movies sponsored by the Ridgewood Guild. And they've returned to Memorial Park at Van Ness Square every other Wednesday in August at 9 p.m. Movies that will be shown on August 11th is Maleficent, and August 25th is Tootsie. Please bring a chair or blanket and enjoy the free movie. With summer here, Ridgewood Recreation still has many camps available. A few of these include Art of Camping with Abracadoodle, Golf Camp with TGA Golf Adventures, Animation Flicks with Incrediflix, Skateboarding Summer Camp with Shred Co., Super Science Mashup Summer Camp with Explore Science, Built by Make Computer Camps, Extreme Summer Steam with Education Explorers. Details and fees are posted on the Recreation's website, ridgewoodnj.net/recreation. Graydon Pool will show family movies on the beach on Friday, August 6th, and there's a rain date of August 7th. Little Giants will be shown. Gates open at 7:30, and movies start after dusk. Bring a chair or blanket. Flashlights are recommended. The admission is $5 per person, and you do not have to be a member of Graydon Pool to attend the movie. I just want to mention the Glen Road Hill is now open and is a one-way street going down the hill. Overnight parking in the Central Business District is open to all Ridgewood residents through December 31st, 2021 in the Hudson Street Garage, second floor, the Prospect Street lot, the Cottage Place lot, and the Wilsey Square lot next to the McMurphy's entrance. Overnight parking is allowed in these locations from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. The cost per space is $75 for 3 months or $150 for 6 months. If you have family members or friends who live in other towns, our Ridgewood parking permits are available for sale to them. for the rest of 2021 for the same price as residents are charged. CBD employees can park on the entire fourth floor of the Hudson Street garage with CBD employee stickers. All non-premium parking permit holders who used to park on the fourth floor may now park on the third floor of the Hudson Street garage. 24-hour parking spaces are available to all Ridgewood residents in the train station lot and in the Cottage Place lot from now through December 31st, 2021. The price is $335 per vehicle, which will be prorated based on the month of purchase. Music in the Night, sponsored by the Ridgewood Guild, is every Friday in the Central Business District through September. Music and Laughter is in Memorial Park at Van Ness Square on Saturday nights, with comedy acts beginning at 7:30 p.m. and bands performing each week at 8 p.m. There will also be other performances throughout the pedestrian plaza on Saturdays and Sundays. The Bergen County Utilities Authority is holding their household hazardous waste disposal this Saturday, August 7th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Bergen Community College, which is located at 400 Paramus Road. Paper shredding, electronics and computers, unwanted medication, and up to 4 tires can be recycled. Village Council upcoming meetings are broadcast live on Village website and Channel 34 on FiOS. They're also available after the meeting on YouTube. Upcoming meetings include August 11th, next week, is the Village Council public meeting at 8 p.m. September 1st and September 22nd are work sessions at 7:30 p.m. and our public meeting in September is September 8th at 8 p.m. That's all I have.
Thanks, Heather. Just real quick on, to tag on to the comments about call-in public comment, because I know there's this narrative that we discontinued hybrid meetings, but in fact, we've never conducted a hybrid meeting. But I also wanted to point out that, and I don't know that you said it, I think part of the issue has been we've been short-staffed in IT, and Dylan's been on his own, and so the ability to, the importance of prioritizing certain issues certainly is paramount. So just wanted to tag that on. Councilwoman Perrin?
Thank you, Mayor. The Central Business District Advisory Committee hasn't met since our last council meeting, but will meet tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. via Zoom. It is open to all members of the public. If you'd like to attend, contact me via email, and I can send you the link. We do have one of our members moved out of town, and therefore we have a resident vacancy on the CBDAC, and if any resident wishes to apply, you can submit the volunteer form, which is on the village website under Forms, page 2. The Chamber of Commerce has also not met. However, they are preparing for the car show, which is supposed to be on September 10th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. downtown. The Open Space Committee has not met since our last meeting. And the Green Ridgewood meets tomorrow night at the stable outdoors at 7 o'clock, weather permitting. That also is open to any member of the public if you'd like to join us. That's all I have.
That's it?
Thank
Okay,
you.
very good. Thank you. Councilwoman Reynolds?
Thank you, Mayor. I have had no committee meetings since our last meeting, so I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Walsh?
I have nothing to report either.
Deputy Mayor?
I almost had nothing to report. So we heard back from Sustainable Jersey, the first round. We got comments back on the application. So out of the 465 points we submitted, we have 145 that were approved, and there's 2 more rounds. So we have comments on all the other ones that still need to be approved, so we'll need some additional information. But we have 3 priority actions approved and 9 categories of different actions. The way they categorize them are approved. So for silver certification, we would need at least 3 priority actions and 8 categories. So we're like 2/3 of the way there. We just need about 205 more points. So we have till November to get additional information and address some of the comments that were made, and we'll continue to work on that throughout the rest of the year, and that's all I have.
Well, that's exciting. So I only have our master plan subcommittee or committee at this point met with representatives from NV5 and Higher Grew last week. and established our kind of updated plan for getting through our master plan process. So please mark your calendars, September 21st at 7:30 p.m., Planning Board meeting. One of our agenda items will be the master plan stakeholder meeting. So I will be sending out a notice to all of my council colleagues and ask everyone to distribute this. And I'm looking at our favorite Miss Violet, hello, that hopefully she'll help us get the word out. This is an important opportunity for stakeholders to come in, listen to the process, and be part of our master plan document. It is really, really an exciting time for us. I would encourage council colleagues that if you do have meetings that conflict with the September 21st meeting, you might want to encourage your committees to come to the planning board meeting and meet there, which is here. We will also be requesting or actually having an optional pre-registration for folks to, if they want to come to that particular meeting. The optional pre-registration would not prohibit somebody from coming into the public meeting, but it would give us an opportunity to understand those individuals who are interested in participating, and also give us an opportunity to communicate with them as we're updating and moving forward in the process, and allow them to be a regular part of it. So we're really, really excited. And again, that is September 21st, 7:30, right here, Planning Board meeting. We're going to try to keep it, if not just the stakeholder meeting, it will be a very light agenda so that we maintain a focus on that and not keep everyone too long and too late and having to hear other applications. So that's all I have, and with that, we'll go on to our discussion items.
Okay, there are no items under Ridgewood Water. Under parking, we have wayfinding, planning, and design services. I'll have Mr. Rooney come up. I know that we were meeting with THA Consulting on various issues surrounding the garage, and that Jim Zullo, who is president of THA Consulting, discussed the fact that he has done signage for various entities, including the New Brunswick Parking Authority, the Rahway Parking Authority, and Nexus Properties. And so he developed a proposal to provide parking planning and design services, and it's to develop a parking facility wayfinding program. This would be not to exceed $11,900. I know that Mr. Rooney spoke with Mr. Zullo as well, and also with the references. So maybe you just want to add a few words.
Sure. Good evening. This was a process that we talked about when we were going through the construction of the garage as to how we were going to get people to get into the garage. So now we're looking at signage that would go out throughout the village. We've had many inquiries as to why we don't have something in place that would bring people to that location. People coming in from out of town who are going to restaurants may not be familiar with the area. So I believe it's a good idea to get something in place that would be uniform and also have directions to our lots and to the garage. And speaking to Jim Zullo, again, when we were going through the construction process, he offered this as something that they did perform for other entities, and he gave me some references. I talked to every one of them. They spoke very highly of the process. They felt that after getting Haas involved and getting some direction as to where to put the signage and what that would look like, they found it diminished greatly inquiries that people were bringing up about, how to get to the important places when they're coming into the village. So I also went through 2 other sources as to whether they provide services like this. There are none in the area, and I reached out to about 5 or 6 through a software that we use called GovQuote, and most of them are on the West Coast, but they just prepare signage. They don't do the service of location and design and things of that nature. So, again, working with Jim, he's highly thought of, and I've been very impressed with that whole firm through the design and the follow-up on the construction.
So, questions?
It wasn't clear to me whether their service would include getting us on Google so that Google knows where to direct people to the garage and that sort of thing.
I can certainly
or to
ask.
any of the parking lots.
Yeah, I can certainly inquire.
It does strike me as expensive for $11,900 when we could just go with a sign that says P on it with an arrow, pretty basic, and we could see, is that sufficient? I do wonder if this is overkill. I understand that branding is important, but this seems a bit like gilding the lily to me.
One of the concerns we had when we started this process was what the signage would look like. We don't want just signs going into the village. We want something that's attractive and fits to the core. Certainly you can put a P up and an arrow, if that's where you want to take this.
So I actually have a question, and I don't know if anyone else can see this, and I'm trying, but on one of the pages we have the parking sign. It has the P sign, and then there's another sign below it. I don't know if anybody can read that.
Yeah,
It looks
you
like
can
a
see it.
section sign. What does it say there?
It says, no permit required in this section,
Okay.
3-hour limit.
So when we have a lot of signage, and so this came up recently on a social media post, that there's so much signage that it's confusing. When in this proposal, are they talking about integrating all of this signage, or is this just, as Councilwoman Perrin pointed out, an overkill for a big P and an arrow? And the reason I ask, and I'm just going to ask another question before you respond, is on some of the signs where those are by ordinance, do those require a specific color, or is that just because I know some of our signs are trimmed in red, and is that something that's required by code or by New Jersey statute that the ordinance signs are in, Chris? I don't know. And I'm asking for a reason, because to me, if it's not, then can you integrate everything into one piece? Or if it's required by statute, then
Each one be separate.
it would have to be separate, and then we're kind of almost back to in a different sort of like square one. We're not able to do that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control
That
Devices,
was it.
that's the federal regulation that governs how signs are prepared and presented to the motorist. There are specific colors for regulatory signs. If the signage that is proposed is going to be considered regulatory, it should be a white background, black lettering.
So we couldn't, so if we were
But
saying,
you can have, I believe you can have wayfinding signs, which is, I believe, what this proposal is.
yeah, but I'm kind of thinking that if we're going through this whole process, and I agree, it seems like an awful lot of money, if we're not able to integrate all of the signage and have this consistent branding, then we're still in the same situation of having lots of different configurations and colors and things happening, which is the confusing piece of it. So I kind of agree that maybe this is something more simply addressed by creating, a P sign and then maybe garage stylized on the side of it and an arrow. And do we have to go through this expense to reinvent, the wheel, for what it's worth? But I don't know if anyone else has a thought.
I mean, I kind of agree also, because downtown Ridgewood isn't huge. It's not massive. There's only so many roads that go to the garage. So, I mean, unless, of course, they're going to integrate everything and come up with a whole plan of how to direct people to various parking lots, then maybe that might make sense. But if it's just to get people to the garage, then I think a P and an arrow would be sufficient on a few streets.
And I just also thought that it might be beneficial because we have these different configurations of our central business district with Councilwoman Perrin and I are on the Welcome to Ridgewood committee. And when we're closing down and creating the pedestrian plaza, or then we have the streets open, in some instances, and I think we spoke about this and I just don't recall when, it may be prudent to have some kind of a movable sign, something where we can say, this sign is where it belongs here when the streets are open, but maybe to redirect to the garage when those streets are closed. So it's almost as if maybe there's just a different approach, but I think that this, to me, I think is a little bit of overkill. I do think it has to say garage, not just the P, but where there's something.
We'll work with Signal and, see what we can come up with, and just have some various wayfinding signs from, East Ridgewood Avenue up, and Broad Street and Franklin, and then also probably Dayton to Prospect. So
just as a question, did the CBDAC actually look at this at all to say this would be our recommendation?
They have not.
Yeah.
They were waiting to see what Tim Haas would come up with. They haven't specifically come up with spots for signs. But I could ask.
I'm not just saying
for their
spots, but
input.
it's possible that the CBDAC could look at this and say, the difference between CBDAC members and members of, or Tim Haas and CBDAC are members of the public. They're people that live, eat, and breathe Central Business District.
Right.
So they kind of have a pulse as to what people are thinking, where the challenges are.
Where their customers
where
enter
the customers
the
end
town.
up. So I almost feel like before we go this route, maybe we put just a placeholder here and allow the CBDAC the opportunity to look at this and weigh in. I think it's a great project for them.
Yes.
No problem.
I agree. I do have one question. Maybe Mr. Rudershauser knows the answer. Somehow in my mind's eye, I think in other towns, I've seen parking signs for municipal parking that's always green. Is there a rule?
Green is usually considered like a directional sign, like your highway signs, green background, white lettering. A brown background, white lettering is usually indicating a recreational facility like a park, a state park or something like that, a beach, if it's a park.
So would you recommend that this be a green sign with white lettering?
Again, to the mayor's point, the question is whether the council wants to attach any kind of regulatory oomph to the sign, or if you just want to stick to more of the advisory type. That's where advisory, you could have more, maybe a blue or green background. I would double check which is more advisable in the MUTCD.
Blue would be like this way to the lake, wouldn't it?
No, blue also has its uses.
Okay.
I think hospital. I think blue. I think hospital.
Yeah.
Although, curiously, I happen to think that the blue background on the garage for the parking sign is particularly nice. And I think, it could be, sometimes when you make something a little bit different, suddenly people see it, where they don't necessarily see what what you're just accustomed to. So you're accustomed to seeing the piece, so you don't really process it. But if you see something different, it catches your attention. So I think CBDAC could probably take a look at it and
Sure.
If there are any graphic artists out in the world, maybe you want to give Pam a call. Email Councilwoman Perrin, calling all graphic artists. No, I think that's a great opportunity. And then we just put this on placeholder and see what they come up with first, and then we move from there.
All right, the next item is two-wheel vehicle parking on Hudson Street Garage, as well as electric vehicle parking on Hudson Street Garage. So there have been requests to allow overnight parking, both of electric vehicles, at the charging stations on level 2 at the garage, as well as permit overnight parking of motorcycles. So Mr. Rudershauser has written a memo, and he indicates that for motorcycle parking, Obviously, it provides an attractive place to park a motorcycle since it's sheltered from the elements. The garage has a total of 13 marked motorcycle spaces, but right now there's not a great demand for them. What he is recommending is considering selling a permit to residents, allowing 24/7 parking for motorcycles on levels 2 and 3. The annual cost, he estimates, could be $1,500 to $1,800. And then it's basically the council would have to decide, do they want to guarantee a user a parking space? In other words, they are buying a space for 24/7. The next part of it is the 4 EV charging spaces on level 2. We've looked at the chargers with Jim O'Connell, and the type of chargers are actually slow chargers, and it takes about 8 hours to charge a car at the cost of about $4 of electricity per charge. Currently, those with premium parking permits can park until 12 noon. After 12 noon, anyone can park in those spaces while paying for the time of the kiosk for a maximum of 3 hours. If we were to allow electric vehicle parking at the charging spaces 24/7, it would remove that space for others. So should a permit guarantee an EV charging space, effectively reserving the parking space for the permit holder? I mean, because those are limited, only 4, I don't know that that's the best way to go. Again, the payment should be greater than the regular premium parking permit, because, it is 24/7 access if we're going to do that. So that's what we need to discuss, so we know what kind of ordinance to put into effect if you're interested in doing so.
I'd be interested in going with, maybe trying a portion of the motorcycle spaces, but definitely I was not in favor of the electric charging spaces. Again, that was the first thing I thought of when I was reading this over. I saw there's only 4 of them, so I see a lot of Teslas and electric vehicles around, so, if you get rid of one of the only 4 spaces that we have downtown and give it to one person all the time, then you're cutting out 25% of our electric vehicle parking, so, I wouldn't be, I'd just leave that alone. That's my thought on it.
So my question would be, why do we have such slow chargers? Because I know that if a Tesla goes to the Tesla on the highway, they can charge their car in 30 minutes. So why would they even come here to charge?
One of the reasons is they're a universal charger. They're not geared to a specific electric vehicle.
Okay.
So that any EV vehicle can use them if that EV vehicle has with it the proper plug. Jimmy O'Connell went there with his son, who has a Tesla.
Yeah.
They were our test mule, shall we say. And his son is very, very knowledgeable on charging. He has a home charging unit at his home.
Okay.
And he knows how much it costs. That's why he gave us the approximate
Yeah.
overnight charging cost is like $4. Because the current meters we have, the 4, they're free to the user at this time, other than paying for the
Yeah, but
parking
you wouldn't
space.
even be able, you wouldn't even get a charge. If it's going to take you 8 hours to charge,
A full charge. I
Full
mean,
charge,
if you
yeah,
if you
but-
went there for 3 hours, yeah, you'd boost your battery up
you're just going
somewhat.
to boost it. You're not going to, yeah.
Exactly. You're not going to. You might top it off, but you're
Yeah.
not going to fully charge a battery.
Yeah.
I guess it's like getting half a tank of gas, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I
or
don't think
a
they
couple
were
gallons
ever-
of gas.
I don't know,
Just
we
keep
fill
it
up
going.
the tank when I go.
Yeah, but I think electric cars are a little bit different because I think that it's not like it, if you're not charged, it literally limits until you can get to the next private charger.
Like it
Right.
should be fully charged.
Yeah, it should,
before
I
you-
mean, I'm pretty sure they should be charged, because they had them when I worked at ADP, they had them and people would, you'd charge them and at lunch, they'd go out and move it so somebody else could charge, and those chargers were like pretty powerful.
There are different levels of charger.
Yeah.
We have one of the lowest levels.
Yeah.
Lack
the
of a better, a more decorous term, we got the contractor special.
It
Because
sounds like it.
the village, we said electric chargers, we
Yeah.
didn't specify that they had to be a high-rate charger.
Yeah.
A high-rate charger also takes a much more powerful,
Yeah.
higher voltage circuit, which
Right.
in itself is more expensive to install.
Right.
I don't think that we were ever intended to get in the business of charging or
Yeah.
filling vehicles, right? I think they were
Yeah.
just added as a courtesy, so if you have an electric
Yeah.
vehicle and, you know, you want to get a little bit of
Yeah.
juice, then you could park here and also do that. That's why we don't charge for it. So, I mean, I think if we're, you know, looking at it that way, then we're kind of like turning it into like, I guess, a modern day gas station without the gas. You're just
Yeah.
selling electricity to
Yeah.
electric vehicles. That's just for parking, and I would view it as a courtesy.
I'm not so offended by the fact that it's not a fast charger, because I've heard from an owner of a Tesla that fast charging is not good for the battery, that slow charging is better for it. But I'm really not an official. I don't know much about EVs, but also at $4 a day, if you're charging for 8 hours, for 364 days of the year, that would be $1,464 that we would be eating, right? If we're not charging for it.
Yep.
So I don't, that would wipe out the cost of the permit.
Well, if the council wishes to go in that direction, I'd recommend the permit certainly more expensive than an RPP. You know,
Yeah,
the Ridgewood
double
Premium
the
Parking
price.
Permit, because you should add a supplement to it to possibly cover a portion or all of a charge per day.
But then you lose that spot. 'Cause
What's
then
that?
You lose that spot because it's, you have to, you know, guarantee it to that person for 24
Well,
hours.
that's what Heather mentioned. It's the consideration for you to decide on is, do you want to reserve a spot to the to the person who, say, purchases that RPP plus EV, for lack of a better term, and then that person's, literally, a license plate can be posted so that no vehicle other than that license plate vehicle can charge there.
Yeah, I say,
Again,
with only 4 to begin
Interested in
with,
going
it
over
doesn't make any sense.
You know, this came up when, I think, at the very early stage of the garage with the charging and whether or not we should be charging to charge, because there was a cost involved, and I agree. I think that, you know, the taxpayers are eating the cost, and I thought we had some conversation at the time whether or not you could charge for that. But I agree with the deputy. I agree. I think that the motorcycle is fine. I think the other piece of it is not really, probably not prudent.
I'd suggest capping the number of motorcycles that can be there 24/7 at 7, since there are 13 spots. That way people would come in and out in the other spots.
Okay.
You want to cap the number of motorcycles at 7?
For
Those
the
who-
permits.
For the
That'll be
permits?
24/7.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would
First come, first serve.
agree with that, because.
And so you don't want to reserve it for, well, if all we sold was 7, then one of those spaces would go to those 7. And then the others would be open.
The 6 other spaces would
Right,
be
correct,
open. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, but a two-wheel vehicle can always park in a regular spot and pay.
Right.
too. It's not like they're
True,
prohibited from parking.
yeah, they don't have to park in the motorcycle
Yeah.
spot. It's
Yeah.
just, we hope they do so that there's more room for
Yeah.
cars, right? So everyone's okay with 7 spaces at 24/7 for motorcycles?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you have, you know, Mr. Rhodes has recommended $1,500 to $1,800 annually. Our RPP premiums, Eileen, maybe you can remind me, I think it's $1,300 for the year, $1,325 maybe? So that's, but again, that's not 24/7. You know, that's basically commuting times. So, I mean, they can stay technically longer, but they usually don't. So, you know, pre-COVID, they would commute, they would park, they would commute, and they would leave. So, to go home. So, I mean, I would think at least 1,500, if not 1,600. I mean, we could get together, Chris and Bob and I, and come up with a number, you know, based on 24/7 access. And since we're only selling 7, you know, it's guaranteed that those 7 will get those spaces.
In my experience, $1,800 would get you a covered space that is locked and is your own space. This is not quite that, so I would go to the lower end of this suggested range of $1,500.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Anyone else?
Okay, okay.
Okay.
And then I'm just hearing that for the EV spaces, we're just going to keep them open for anyone.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. If we could jump to number, I'm sorry, letter C, 6, while Mr. Rooney's still here, and then he can be on his way.
Wait, I wanted to ask one other question about
Go ahead.
leaving vehicles overnight. Do we have anyone sign a waiver or anything that we're not responsible for their vehicles?
It says it on the
Okay, all right, fine.
application.
Okay, good, all right,
That we're not responsible.
all right, got it.
So C6 is, I just want to mention, we have to amend the salary ordinance for firefighters and fire supervisors. It's to amend the current salary ordinance, which was found to have some flaws in the calculations. So, we'll correct that, we'll adopt that new ordinance, and then move on from there. So basically, that's what that's about. I don't know
What
if
are
you
we
have-
adopting, though? Because we didn't get any backup. So.
Right, so it's not prepared fully yet, so it'll be
Okay.
introduced next week.
Okay.
And then it'll be adopted in September,
Okay.
okay? All right, so if no one has any questions, I think that's all Mr. Rooney is here for. So Mr. Ruddershauser is
Thank you.
stuck
Good
for a
evening.
while. Have a good night.
Good night.
See you, Bob.
Okay, so we'll go back to budget C1, which is a street sweeper for the street division. This is to keep us compliant with the New Jersey Municipal Stormwater General Permit from the NJDEP. It's a Elgin Pelican model, and it's comparable to the current units that we use. The funds are in the 2021 capital budget. It will be purchased through the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey from Timmerman Equipment of White House, New Jersey. This is a cooperative purchasing program. It's not to exceed $265,202.70. We currently have 2 street sweepers. One is not worth repairing. The hydraulic tank is starting to rot. Also, the vehicle itself, the sweeper itself, is starting to rot. I do want to mention that the way that the sweeper works, that there are 2 big brooms on the outside, and then there's 1 center broom. So the 2 big brooms on the outside kick it to the center broom underneath, and that goes into the hopper. And then the material collected in the hopper goes to our construction yard because it is considered hazardous waste because it has oils and gas and whatever is on the streets. And then we get rid of it through a proper protocol.
Okay, anyone? Questions?
Yes, I just wanted to say so that people listening understand that when we talk about state compliance, the point of the compliance is so that stormwater doesn't go off into the water system carrying debris from the roadway. And that's why we're looking at this. The other thing is, I wanted to know if, going forward, we would consider a smaller push sweeper. I've seen in other towns, especially on the sidewalks, but also in the gutter areas, a sweeper that a person walks behind. And maybe that would clean our sidewalks in a way that a street sweeper can't. So maybe if we need it in the future, we should consider that kind of a smaller sweeper.
We currently don't sweep the sidewalks. Sidewalk care and maintenance is the responsibility of the adjoining property owner. The sweeper that's before the council tonight is strictly for the streets. It's also safer. I'm not simply because the operator is encased in a cab. We have found that to be a benefit. One of our sweepers that's not doing so well was in a head-on accident. A motorist did cross the line as the sweeper operator was making a turn and hit him head-on. And it also, unfortunately, accelerated that individual's earlier retirement because some of the complications that occurred from the accident.
Okay. So, yeah, I appreciate the idea about keeping the sidewalks clean, but I agree that's the responsibility of individual property owners, and it's not something that we do. So,
Do we send a notice to the property owners on an annual basis reminding them that they have that obligation to keep the sidewalks clear?
No, we do not. The only notifications we make regarding sidewalks to property owners are if there is a defect that could result in a tripping hazard, and if they fail to remove ice and snow in the time limits dictated by the ordinance.
So I'm just going to add, though, to that, there have been a number of concerns regarding the central business district, and as we've discussed with the village manager, how to approach that with the landlords to get some of the streets, the sidewalks cleaned, the weeds cleaned up, and other such things. I believe that 2 members of the Welcome to Ridgewood committee have taken the time to reach out to the landlords. They've asked us to allow them that opportunity before addressing it through the village, but I think that it's probably at some point prudent to send some kind of an annual note out to say that you are responsible to the curb. Councilwoman Reynolds and I were downtown yesterday, and we saw trash and garbage right in front of one of the stores. It was pretty disgusting, and hopefully those folks from the Welcome to Ridgewood committee are going to get out there and really motivate some of the landlords to clean to the curb. Especially, like I said, the weeds between the sidewalk and the trash and just general maintenance. So hopefully we'll have that resolved. We'll give it, our next meeting is Tuesday at 2:30, so we'll see where we're at, and hopefully we'll have it resolved without having the village having to go in. But it probably is prudent to send out like an annual notice just to remind everyone that this is their obligation. No different than a homeowner.
Well,
Go ahead. No, go
I'm
ahead.
just going to say the commercial landlord or commercial property owner responsibility is greater than the homeowner. So if you're going to do the notice might be best, and if the Welcome to Ridgewood committee doesn't do it, that notice on an annual basis would be best going to the commercial property owner, rather than just all the residences. You consider that the cost might be to all the residences, but you never know what kind of feedback you're going to get and how those issues may come up. That may affect liability on certain aspects of village responsibility. So I think when we're dealing with the residential sidewalks, we ought to be guided pretty cautiously with regard to just getting a notice out telling them it's your responsibility to do this, 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 and this. And but certainly with the commercial property owners, it's a better idea.
Yeah, I think that's the first step we're taking, just to kind of hopefully remedy this situation. You know, we want people to come downtown, see our beautiful central business district, and find a clean and inviting environment. So hopefully everyone's going to do the big lean in and clean up. Okay.
Okay. The next item is purchase of turf equipment list. Turf meaning grass, actually. So Department of Public Works Fleet Services is looking for an equipment lift to better safely service and maintain landscaping equipment such as mowers. This is purchased under the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing to Hoffman Services, Inc. of Newark, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $12,150. This is in the 2021 capital budget.
Anyone?
All right.
Moving on.
The next item is leaf collection services. Last year, we awarded, we went out to bid. We received one bid from DTS Trucking of Hawthorne, New Jersey, and that bid was for $105,000. This is to supplement the street division leaf collection in Area B. And they make 3 sweeps through Section B. They collect the leaves and then transport them to our Lakeview compost facility. We've contacted DTS, and they're interested in doing the work again for the same price for a second year, not to exceed $105,000. This is funded from the 2021 Street Division operating budget. You do have a listing of what the prices were. I do believe the first year we did it was 2015, where it was $64,000. In 16, it was a different company. It was $85,000. Then it went up to $88,500 in 2017. In 2018, it went up to $92,460. 2019, company changed again, and it was $79,800. I don't think they fully understood what their responsibilities were, honestly. And then 2020, it went up to $105,000, and it will remain at that for 2021.
Okay, any questions on that? It's such a big jump from when we started that. What year was the first year we did that?
2015.
It was 15, yeah.
I don't think they realized what a big job it was when they bid it out, and then I think after that, they kind of realized that it was a little bit more than they had bargained for.
I remember, actually. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Area B is a big area. It's
Yeah.
everything north of West Glen and everything west of Maple Avenue.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of collection.
Yeah.
Even though it looks like an awful lot of money,
Mhm.
but it is a lot of work.
It is.
You're right.
The next one is award second year for contract for snow plowing services. Again, we went out for bid last year. We received one bid from Conquest Construction, and it billed its hourly rates of various equipment and services, depending on what times of day they're doing it or what they're doing for us. So Conquest is interested in doing the work again for the same price for a second year. The initial award last year and this year will be not to exceed $100,000. Obviously, we can't predict what kind of snow and ice we might get. We may get lucky this year and not have too much, but we'll see. So the recommendation is to award it to Conquest for construction for a second year.
Any questions?
Yes. On page 5, there's reference to snow removal or leaf collection. Can we also enlist these people for leaf collection? I mean, sometimes we have leaves on the ground past November 1st.
That might be a carryover from a previous bid, because now it's just strictly snow plowing services. We did have this contract requesting prices for loaders and roll-off trucks. We used them in the Halloween nor'easter, I think in 2011, 12, when it brought a tremendous amount of debris down. Right now, we're not anticipating that.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is for tree removals for the Parks Department. We received bids, and this is in various locations. This is due to the emerald ash borer infestation of ash trees. As they do become infested, they become brittle, and they actually shatter. The low bid received, there were 2 bids received, and the low bid was from Dujet's Tree Experts, Inc. of Woodland Park, New Jersey, and their quote was for $84,125. The funding is in the 2021 capital budget. There was a complete bid package submitted, and this bidder has worked for the village in the past successfully. So the recommendation is to award to Dujet's Tree Experts, Inc. And this way, it will reduce the hazard of these dying ash trees.
So, Chris, oh, sorry, I just have a question. So are these all the ash trees that are currently dead or dying, or do we
No.
expect there to be a
No.
lot more?
We're continually finding additional trees that are infected. There was a program earlier this year to inject like a vaccine into some of the trees that were thought to be viable, that could survive, but that was done. Since then, more being observed to have the illness, they're deteriorating. Obviously, they get scheduled for removal. The way the bark borer treats ash trees, if you're familiar with arboriculture, it's very similar to the way Dutch elm disease kills an elm tree. Oftentimes very, very rapidly, but in the elm trees, like the bark borer and the ash trees, the wood deteriorates very rapidly, it becomes very weak, and starts to crumble quite quickly.
Now, once these trees are removed, is there a period of time where you have to wait before you replant, or can you not replant in that same location? Do you have
You can replant, but we would defer to our arborist, our certified tree expert, for a species that is not affected by the bark borer. This contract also has grinding the stump about 10 inches below grade, and then backfilling with topsoil and seeding that. If we want to replant a tree there, we certainly wouldn't want to plant it on top of the remnants of a stump. It would have to be offset somewhat. And again, we would defer to Declan as to what species he would recommend would be best in that location, and then also looking at the underwire or no wires overhead condition and those trees that PSE&G recommends.
Is this coming out of the tree planting budget, or is it its
Yes.
own
Yes,
item?
it is.
Yes.
That's really a shame.
So I just wanted to ask a couple questions. First, on the number column, presumably that's the ID number of the trees based on the tree inventory?
Yes.
So we were able to identify, and then we'll update the tree inventory that these trees are removed?
Yes.
Okay. So the next question then is, when I'm looking at this, and I kind of look at 331, 331, 335, 35, 41, 41, 45 Abbey Court, are we going to notify the folks in that area? Because, you know, people like me, we take our tree streets seriously. It's, you kind of like feel like you have some, I don't want to say like a bond to your street trees in front of your home. So should we be notifying people to say, this is what's going on, and this is why these trees are being removed? Is that something?
We could ask the parks to consider that, but the majority of these trees, they look like they need to be removed. They don't even qualify as a late bloomer anymore. They're dead.
Okay. I mean, maybe it's apparent to some, I guess. I don't know.
And there's not, there wouldn't really be a discussion like, well, maybe you could keep this tree. I mean, they all have to go because they're infected. So even if somebody objected and said, I don't want you to cut down my tree, they'd...
You know, I'm not saying to
down.
let them object. I'm just saying so that people understand that this is why the trees are being removed. Because I know for me, my trees in front of my house, I kind of wanted them to be there forever. You know, they enhance your neighborhood, and it's important for some people, and some
Right, but
might not realize.
If the tree is visibly dead or dying.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't know if these are. I'm just asking a question. Everybody could disagree with me.
Majority of the trees do look quite unhealthy.
Okay, all right.
And until they are removed, they're just going to continue to deteriorate. A lot of the residents have been contacting parks, asking when is this going to occur, when can it be removed, because they see the limbs dropping. Obviously, they don't want one falling on their cars or, God forbid, their children.
So maybe we don't have to do that, but when I look at the, like along Windermere, when I look at the number of trees in front of, it's almost like the same run, it's really going to change how the road looks. It's going to have a dramatic impact.
It's going to be a big change.
Yeah.
The trees that are dying on Windermere, particularly the very eastern end near Pershing, you could see the effect that the bark borer has had on those trees. It's very, very visible. Once they are removed, it will change the streetscape. We're going to be coming back to the council for funding in future capital budgets for planting new trees. It's just at this time, we don't have the funds in the budget line item to both remove and to replace.
Okay, all right. So I guess.
I did have another question. I see on the, was this developed based on the tree inventory?
Yes, it was developed on the tree inventory and with our arborist, Declan.
Good. I'm glad to see that where the inventory is serving a good purpose. And as I see it, there are 45 trees that will be cut down, and then there's stumps as well.
The stumps will be ground out, yes.
And then the last 4 trees on the list are identified as ash. Does that mean the rest of them on this listing are non-ash trees?
They're all ash trees, but I think those last ones, those are the ones I believe at Graydon Pool.
Okay.
So there had to be a little bit more clarity on the species there, because Graydon is a park, has lots of different trees. We don't want the wrong tree removed. The other ones are at a location by a homeowner. It should be relatively self-evident.
I see. Okay. And With 5G coming in, are those telephone poles going to take up spaces where we would otherwise plant trees?
That's a difficult question to answer at this time. It is very much predicated as to how many poles and where we could put trees in relationship to poles. Obviously not within like 10 or 15 feet, but I believe there you can still plant. It shouldn't be an impediment to planting. You just need to coordinate a bit.
Okay.
We can also work with our consultant for the 5G and indicate that there were trees there at one time. We're anticipating putting a tree in the future, and so we don't want that space taken by a pole. You know, hopefully he can work with the carriers to be able to not place those poles there.
That would be good.
So I just had a different thought. Instead of notifying people, maybe we could take this list and publish it on the website and create a link and
Sure.
publicize it through social media, and
Sure.
maybe also in an e-notice, we could put a link, and then in an e-notice, because my concern is also that people don't know that they have these trees on their property necessarily, and so we're removing these trees because they're ours, but then there are other trees in the world that are also probably in really rough shape as well. So maybe we can add that, just kind of messaging, and then just put the list rather than, is that a good approach?
Sure, we could do that.
All
I
right,
mean,
good.
the list of trees that's before you, those are within the public right-of-way.
No, I know.
If a homeowner has additional trees that are suffering from bark borer and they're dying, we don't have any prohibition on the homeowner approaching the tree company and making a private deal with them, if both parties were agreeable.
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that we publish this list, and this way folks see that these are the trees we're going to be removing, but also kind of like a PSA that be on the lookout because these trees are being infected with this, or infested, is it infected? Infested, and that they're dying, so that to take a look at their own properties, but this is our obligation, but for them to be on the alert at least. Just a PSA, and then we can publish
Okay.
this.
The only concern I have is I don't want a property owner to try to make the village liable for the illness of their trees because trees in the public right-of-way are sick and we're removing them. So I would defer to Matt Rogers on that.
You mean that our trees made their trees infested?
Yeah.
I don't want that accusation to
I'd
occur.
say. And then we'd have to pay to remove their trees because our,
I mean, Matt, do you want to weigh in?
I know what
on
he's
that?
saying.
You know, I hate to say it, the usual attorney response is you got to be fact-specific, and it would be, you know, on a tree-by-tree issue. So I think the wording is obviously, as Chris has pointed out, is going to be key, and you just have to make sure that we're letting them know we're doing this because of potentials, and that's what we're trying to protect.
So maybe Matt wants to look at it first.
Well, I mean, if Chris has any questions, Chris will run it by me.
Yeah.
He can take care of that.
Okay.
Okay?
I got one other, I just want to clarify, I think Pam said 45 trees, but to me it's 90 trees, right? Is it
Excuse
90?
me?
I think Pam had said 45 trees are going to be removed, but I see 90, right?
It's 90.
Right, there's an A and a B. You're right.
Okay.
And stumps. Or stumps ground out.
Okay.
It was tricky with the stumps, I admit.
What's that?
Pam was just stumped on the stumps.
All right, the next item is amending professional services award for a master plan. Village Council adopted the resolution to award professional services contract to Hire Gruel and Associates to update the master plan. It was for an amount not to exceed $110,000. This will be increased to $130,000, and I'll have Mayor Knudsen explain why.
Yeah, so this was my little kind of rough math and a little bit of an error. So Hire Gruel submitted their RFP with their proposal, and because we had the Conservancy doing the open space piece and our Planning Board Historic Preservation HPC member, Diane O'Brien, doing the HPC piece, I actually miscalculated the piece of it where Hire Gruel would be taking that raw data and integrating it into the whole project. So it's just the difference, and plus they are going to be collecting all of the NV5 documents and websites and updating all of that. So there was a little bit of extra, but we've allocated this, the funding quite some time ago. So Bob Rooney was good with it, and we're good to go.
Okay. The next item is awarding cooperative purchasing contracts for police vehicles. All of these are budgeted for in the 2021 capital budget. So the first one is a 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe from Mall Chevrolet in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. They are in the Educational Service Cooperative of New Jersey. The cost is not to exceed $39,548.13. It will be replacing a 2015 Patrol Chevy Tahoe, which is used by the police lieutenants. That vehicle will actually be moved to the Detective Bureau. And the black 2013 Ford Explorer will be retired from service. That will not be recycled to another department because it has too many underlying issues and it won't serve the village well. It has 85,800 miles and 8,900 hours on the engine. You have another one listed on here. We actually are not going to award that at this time. We'll move that to September. So the second vehicle is a 2021 Ford F-250. It will be replacing the current 2015 F-150 pickup. It actually can't handle pulling the trailers which they currently move. It's on state contract from Route 23 Auto Mall of Butler, New Jersey. The current pickup will be moved to Signal for use. It currently has 14,800 miles and 7,900 hours on the engine. These vehicles are getting near their life as emergency response vehicles, and it means they will normally run into costly mechanical issues being used as emergency response vehicles. But they can be used in other non-emergency village departments probably for several years and still be safe. So, as I said, that third vehicle we'll bring back in September.
So I just have a question. How can it only have 14,800 miles, but then have 7,900 hours? Is it just because it runs? It just...
It's mostly used with the traffic details on construction sites. So it runs, the motor runs to keep the lights flashing for high visibility. It just doesn't run time on the odometer.
Seems like such a waste.
How do you know the hours on it?
A lot of times we have hour meters on vehicles. For example, a lot of equipment like loaders doesn't have an odometer. It has an hour meter because that way it's a better gauge as to the service intervals needed for the vehicle, like when it's time to change an oil, transmission fluid change, and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next item is awarding a lease for the Ford Explorer for the Health Department. This is also approved in the 2021 capital budget. It's through Enterprise where we lease our police vehicles, and so it will be both for lease and maintenance. The Health Department now has 4 staff that will need to use vehicles, and they will have 3 cars to do so. It's $662.91 a month for 60 months. The new staff includes our Vulnerable Population Outreach Coordinator and also the COVID Generalist, and they're both grant-funded positions. So that'll help with the transportation for outreach as well as various events scheduled within the community.
So I'm just wondering, I know Pam always asks this question, but on this, is this a,
It's an SUV. Do they
Yeah.
really need an SUV?
They do, because, like, for example, the Vulnerable Outreach Coordinator has transported things to social services. They've transported, if they have events, they use it also to bring tables or, other equipment to those events. I know they're going to be sponsoring an event in the Graydon lot. They're hoping to get Pfizer vaccines for children, and so we're going to, we'll have more information next week about that. But, for instance, they may have to transport some of the materials over there. So it's similar to recreation in that they bring things with them,
It's not, so it's not that they're,
just driving there, right?
nor are they carrying passengers.
Usually not, usually not.
Is there a
There
regulation?
might be
that they
two.
can't?
No, there might be two of them, but like, for instance, the registered environmental health specialist, she goes out and does her inspections of all the food and eatery places. She's alone, and she'll probably use a car. This is more for transporting the materials that they need to an event or something like that. Okay? The next one is the opposition to the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission gas-fired power plants, sorry. The Food and Water Watch Coalition of New Jersey wrote to the Village Council about the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission, and they proposed to build and operate a new fracked gas-fired power plant at their sewage treatment facility in Newark. They note that, Newark residents and those in surrounding communities have been burdened with an overwhelming number of hazardous and polluting facilities. The dirty energy proposal is quickly moving forward, and the fracked gas generators are supposed to be standby. However, they are exceptionally polluting because as they go down and then fire up, apparently they release more pollutants into the air. And some of that is nitrogen oxides, and they are known to cause respiratory problems as well as shortness of breath, possibly a heart attack or premature death. It's not good for human health. They've not yet explored using a renewable energy-based power source to meet their resiliency needs, so they're asking concerned towns to pass a resolution opposing the gas-fired power plant and calling on Governor Murphy to direct PVSC to redesign the project and use a renewable energy-based power source. So I don't know if you want to do a supporting resolution or not, but that's your decision.
Yeah, and I just have a couple of questions on this, because isn't this, just so I understand the purpose of this, is a standby system? And
Correct.
So what happens if there's no standby system, if they don't have this?
These type of units, which I'm not certain this one is when the grid has to load shed, which is a condition on very high heat, high humidity days. We occasionally approach brownouts. Facilities that have high generators or large capacity generators may be asked to come online instead just in an emergency condition, but in those conditions to help ameliorate the power draw on the grid.
And so if you don't have this, then do you put people at risk?
I'm not quite certain how this is being developed for PVSC, but systems like this that I'm familiar with, like the village has a 500 kilowatt generator of water pollution. If
Right.
we were to lose power, it would produce enough power to run the plant and our treatment processes. We've not yet ever been asked to go off the grid and run our generator during a high heat day, but we have that ability, and if worse comes to worse in a situation, we'll do that then.
And then I guess the next question is if Governor Murphy signed the environmental justice law last summer, then doesn't this have to be in compliance with that law?
What it says within the letter, it says that although it should comply, that it doesn't, and Governor Murphy hasn't taken any action to stop it at this point, which is why they're asking for the resolution for towns to urge him to ask them to look at a renewable energy source instead.
And I think there is a draft resolution that's provided. I think you can take a look at it. It probably needs some modification because it may not be exactly what the council might be looking at. But if it's something where you're looking at reconsideration of a more renewable energy type backup system that won't jeopardize the safety and health of the people in the area, if it's not up and running, some of the wording and some of the concerns you have can be put into a resolution. So if you're interested in putting something out there, you can modify the resolution as proposed to a way that you might want.
What they're suggesting is that an alternative would be a hybrid microgrid setup for resiliency. So there are other things. It wouldn't be like take away this fail-safe and have nothing in case there's an outage. And they say that when the plant stops and starts, because this is just a backup system, that it pollutes more than a plant that is online all the time. I support the idea of looking for alternative energy, renewable energy sources, so that we can accomplish what's in the New Jersey Energy Master Plan and be in compliance with the New Jersey Energy Act, which were recently passed. However, here, I'd have to read every single one of these footnotes. My experience with these resolutions is the way the footnotes are presented, they can be overstated. They can confuse correlation with causation. I would have to read every single one of these footnotes. If we were going to do a resolution, I'd do one much more general than what they have here.
Well, even the footnotes contradict the actual document that
Yeah.
it came with, because that's why I'm asking, because if the footnotes are contradicting this document, then you'd have to go through every single one. I mean, I could pick out two right off the top just looking at it, and
Right.
I'm not even going through it, with a highlighter. So.
Right. In the proposed resolution, it says these plants operate at about 32 hours each week, but in the cover letter,
It says 24.
it says 24.
Right.
So,
And then the question is, is either accurate? Is it less? Why don't we we'll look at this. We're going to just put it on a back burner and we'll look at it.
Okay, that's fine. The next item is authorization of eminent domain. So there's an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of certain real property within the village of Ridgewood. Mr. Rogers, or?
Yes, as we've discussed, there is an interest in looking at the...
Hey, just let
Bertie's go.
All right, go ahead.
Well, there is an interest in taking action with regard to the ownership of the town garage property. In terms of the process and what's required, one of the first thing that needs to be done, other than getting ideas of what you need to go through, is to adopt an ordinance that authorizes the acquisition of certain real property within the village. So this ordinance identifies the property, speaks to the fact that the council is authorizing the acquisition of that property, and it's the first step in the process that gets it going legally. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So, I guess we want to talk about this just in terms of for the public information. So
Sure.
we talk about the actual property, the location, and what it is we envision. Is that, we can talk about that?
With this ordinance, it brings out to the public that the council basically has an interest in taking action to take the title to that property for a public purpose.
Right.
And I know that there were some discussions with regard to what that purpose might be, but the first step that we want to do in this process is to adopt an ordinance to authorize the action to initiate to take title to the town garage property on Franklin Avenue and begin the process of eminent domain that's permitted in the state.
So, just so the public understands, It is the town garage, and we are looking at it as for public purpose. We envision a potential park area in that space, and this has been an ongoing effort, and Councilwoman Perrin and I are on the team that we're working on this together, and we think it's really an exciting opportunity, really, really, really exciting opportunity for the village, and certainly an opportunity to enhance the Franklin Avenue streetscape. So I don't know if Councilwoman Perrin wants to add to that.
In Green Ridgewood, we learned that a park is the best use of property. It costs less, and it serves more people. And if we could create a park, we would be avoiding densification downtown, and we would really be providing a service to all our residents. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I think it'll take a lot of vision on our part and a lot of hard work. But we've been looking at that derelict property for decades, and I think something needs to be done with it.
Anybody, Councilwoman Reynolds?
I agree. I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say that you know, because we own the Walnut Street lot immediately adjacent and behind, it's an opportunity to reimagine what that space could look like, clean it up, and we're really hopeful, and Councilman Perrin and I are working diligently on this, and we're really excited. We just think this is like an opportunity to actually give, it's like a gift to our community, and so we're really excited. So.
Note, this will take a long time.
Yes, footnote, this will take a long time.
It
just-
can't happen overnight.
And just so everybody knows, if you read the ordinance, which I suggest the public do, they realize that it's not just that you're after it by eminent domain. The idea here is to try to negotiate first with the property owner to purchase it, enter into a purchase agreement with them, and make the process much simpler. If that does not take place and we aren't able to negotiate a proper price, then this ordinance authorizes further action to be taken, which may include condemnation and eminent domain. So, but the idea here is to take title of the property, use it for a public purpose in the quickest, most efficient manner that we possibly can.
And I'm just going to restate, it is not just going to take a long time from here, but it took a very long time to get here for tonight. So anyway, very exciting, so hopefully we'll get there.
Okay, the next item is Mayor Keith Kasmark of Woodland Park is asking for a resolution calling for the reinstatement of the state and local tax deduction. He believes local officials need to show support to those in the U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate who are working to restore this deduction, and so he's asking for a resolution of support.
Does anyone have any questions? Because I know Congressman Gottheimer he's been beating this drum for a couple of years, since I think he was elected, actually since he was elected, and you know, it's really, we're hoping that this will have some positive impact. So, any questions? We're good?
Well, I can't say I'm in favor of this. In 2017, when the federal government overhauled the whole tax system, it wasn't just putting a $10,000 cap on salt. It was also rejiggering the tax brackets, and it's a whole program that I think if you just pick and choose that you want to restore the salt, then everything else may fall apart. If we aren't getting that revenue, If the federal government isn't getting that revenue, does that mean that down the road, we don't get federal government money for our state? How does it affect the federal deficit? I just think there's more to it than just restoring salt. And the cover letter says restore the salt in full. Is that 100%?
Yeah, so the conversation, and I've had a number of conversations with the congressman about this, and I hear what you're saying and appreciate that. However, the $10,000 cap on the salt deduction is actually fundamentally unfair. Now, if everybody said, across the board, across the country, a 50% salt deduction for everyone, then that would be fair. But obviously, our taxes are notoriously higher than elsewhere. So some people are getting the benefit of 100%, while we're getting the benefit of only a percentage of our deduction. So it's actually, it's not a balanced or fair approach. And so I think the congressman's his position, and I'm not speaking for him, but the conversations we've had, well, if not the whole thing, then make it a more fair approach by saying 65% for everyone. So you get to deduct 65% of a 65% salt deduction across the board, which would be fair. But in this instance, you have a $10,000 cap. Some people get 100%, and some people get a fraction. Does that make sense?
Well, even the state of New Jersey has a 15% cap, or $15,000 cap, excuse me.
No, $10,000 cap.
That's federal. That's $10,000 for the federal. But New Jersey has its own cap also. So, to me, there's too much to understand here for me to vote in favor of this.
Well, I don't know about anyone else. But
So I think the other thing to mention is that this only impacts property owners. It has no impact on, so it is a benefit to those that are property owners. So anybody who is a renter does not get the benefit of any type of a write-off like this. So I think that it was intended to balance what was the benefit to those, specifically those living in higher cost of living areas like Ridgewood and other areas that are around here, actually. So I think it was that they were trying to balance the benefits, the tax benefits. But I think Councilwoman Perrin is right. It's a bigger discussion because it's each household's individual tax liabilities based on their income and their expenses, and one of them being your real estate taxes. So,
correct.
So, yeah, I think there's a bigger conversation, obviously, but I think it was intended to try and balance those that were maybe less fortunate than others in certain housing cost areas.
But it certainly has impacted the middle income and property owners that are paying without that deduction. They're actually paying more in the long run. So it has impacted really some of the of our more middle income folks.
Yeah, again, I don't know what their incomes are, but they also get the benefit of increase in their value of their homes. So then you have.
But everybody gets that benefit.
Not everybody.
Well, I mean, typically you
Some
get it.
Some places,
well,
more affluent areas do.
Well, I mean, typically when you invest in real estate, there is a return on your investment over a period of time. So there is, for most people, they're going to, that's a long-term investment. And so that missing deduction, so this is another one we can put on the back burner and study it a little further.
I mean, I would just like to add that renters kind of do pay taxes, as not directly, as indirectly, as built into the cost of rent. So anybody who owns property isn't going to just eat the cost of their property taxes. Right. That's included with the rent, and if there's a mortgage and everything else, and upkeep and maintenance and the whole 9 yards. So that
That's a
it
good
does
point.
kind of indirectly impact renters also, so it is a little bit everybody in the village. So, I mean, I would be in support of it, just because, hey, the Federal Reserve's just going to print the money anyway.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
matter what we do.
I am actually in support of this, so if we have, if. I don't-
Yeah, I'm definitely in support of it. I mean,
So-
I think people are leaving New Jersey because of it. I
Yeah.
think it's a reason for somebody who's retired, and why should I be paying all these taxes if I'm not getting any benefit? Like, let me leave New Jersey and get the benefits someplace else.
Or again, it's just an inequitable, it's just not equitable. If it were based on a percentage, I would
Right.
say it's fair, but it's not a percentage. So again, some people get 100%, other people get a lesser percent.
Definitely.
So I think that's a better approach. But, okay.
Okay,
All
so
right.
we have a majority, so we'll put it on. The next one is rescinding a resolution that we did concerning redevelopment of the Valley Hospital. Unfortunately, we had a resolution which indicated that it was a condemnation redevelopment area where it should have been a non-condemnation redevelopment area. So we're going to redo that resolution to make it, to state it correctly, that it's a non-condemnation redevelopment area, and then also rescind in a separate resolution the resolution that adopted it as a condemnation redevelopment area. So that's just procedural, really. The next one is the 2022 Village Council meeting dates. As a reminder, all meetings are usually on Wednesday unless there's a holiday or something to that effect. Work sessions are the first and fourth Wednesday at 7:30, and the public meetings are on the second Wednesday with a 7:30 p.m. special public meeting, which is an agenda review meeting, and then the 8 o'clock p.m. public meeting. All of the dates work out except for October, which October 5th is actually the final night of Yom Kippur in 2022, so the recommendation is to move it to Monday night, October 3rd. Other than that, all of them are not, all the others are not on holidays, and so as long as you're in agreement with that, these are the dates we'll set.
Okay, everyone good?
Okay.
Okay.
And then Coffee with the Council, I'd like to set in 2022 for September 10th, which is the Saturday after Labor Day, which is normally when we hold it. And in fact, our Coffee with the Council is coming up. I believe this year it's going to be on the 18th because we didn't want to hold it on September 11th. So it's 10 to noon at the stable, and there will be letters going out to new residents within the last 2 years since we couldn't hold it last year due to COVID. And but as long as you're okay with setting it for September 10th of 2022, which is our normal date, the Saturday after Labor Day, that's fine. Okay, good. The next one is Care Plus endorsement. We did an endorsement of their community development block grant for an air filtration system upgrade at their group home in Ridgewood. We adopted the resolution, however, unfortunately, the project name was not in the resolution, so we are going, and it relates to the fact that it is residential services COVID-19 response is what they needed to have in their resolution, which unfortunately we didn't know at the time we adopted it. So we are going to re-adopt it with that wording in there so that they can be eligible for that community development block grant. The next is to authority to appoint temporary members to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I know that Mr. Rogers and the mayor have been working on this.
So just to,
If you want to go ahead.
yeah, so first I'm just going to apologize because I realized that when Matt sent the resolution, he dropped Heather from the email, and so
No, I did. Did I?
I think you did, and so that's why nobody else has it but me, but we'll get that out. Everybody can get a copy of it tomorrow. I don't, Matt, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, just, that's odd. So it's come to our attention, or the council's attention, that the zoning board is, or maybe down a particular quorum number for a number of use variances that are coming up. Normally, a seven-member zoning board has a quorum number of 4 members, and they can hold a public meeting on an application. But with a use variance, you need a supermajority, and you would need 5 affirmative votes out of the 7 board members, out of a full majority of the board, to be able to get an approval. So in order to have a quorum on a use variance, you need 5 members present. So what happens is that the municipal land use law provides, in its statutory scheme, both for the council to appoint members of the planning board to fill vacancies in the zoning board when a quorum is necessary to hear an application. I think, as most of you know, once an application is filed and deemed complete, the board has a required statutory time period in which it must provide a hearing and a decision. So in order to satisfy that requirement, you have to provide them with a hearing, and you need a 5-member board for a quorum. So the statute allows the council to appoint a member or as many members of the planning board as needed, that you reach the minimum of a quorum at the zoning board for a use variance. And that would be, if there are 4 members and you need a 5th for a quorum, you appoint 1 member of the planning board. That member has to be, according to the statute, the longest serving member continuously of the planning board, class 4. So that's what you have to start with, because there are certain classes of membership. So I know that the work has been done to determine who the class 4 members are and who is also the longest serving continuous member of the planning board. And this resolution will authorize the council to make that appointment for the zoning board for specific applications on a temporary basis. And it's something that the municipal land use law provides for. And you can do it the opposite way too if you're running into trouble with the planning board, but in this case we're just dealing with the zoning board.
So our Class 4 members, we have 2 openings on the Board of Adjustment. Our longest-serving Class 4 member is Chairman Richard Joel, and the next longest-serving Class 4 member is Debbie Patiri. I did speak with both of them. I think it was important because doing this will require them to be at a meeting every Tuesday night because they are planning board members, and then they would be the temporarily on the Board of Adjustment. And I don't know how often, if there's a 5th Tuesday, I think the Board of Adjustment typically picks up the 5th Tuesday.
Well, Susan, it'll just be that meeting where that application is heard.
Well, unless it's carried.
I mean, if it's carried every 2 weeks, that could be possible.
If it's unless it's carried. That's why I want to just be clear that if it's carried, and that continuum would be important. So I did speak with both of them. They're both on board. And this would allow them to, step right in, and both of them are obviously quite capable. So if they, that's all I'm saying. If it's carried, they would then continue.
Right.
That's
whenever it's carried, they would sit with that application all the way through.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes something's on an agenda, if they don't finish the application, or there are issues that come up with the application, it is carried, so this at least allows that,
Right.
to proceed. So I just have one question for you, because the resolution, to my recollection, didn't specify the individuals. So should we do that, or?
I don't know that has to be done in there. It just allows you to make that appointment of the longest serving continuous member. So if the council would like, we've got a week, we can insert the names, but as long as you have the authority to do it and the council's behind it, then it can be done.
How many use variance applications are we talking about?
Do you know how many are outstanding right now?
I don't know offhand, but I know the zoning board has been getting some more complex applications than it traditionally deals with. Traditionally it's 1 and 2 family house
Right.
applications. Now we're getting some
See,
different
right.
ones that I'm called to testify. Our planner, Mary Ann, is also called to testify.
Yeah, I mean,
Just from my conversations with Bruce Whitaker, who was the board attorney, there are at least 2, possibly a 3rd coming in.
yeah, I think it might only be 2, though. But in any event, so I think this is just important so that these applications can be heard.
Right. We provide the applicant the opportunity for a hearing, and we do it on a timely basis, consistent with the municipal land use law.
So can I ask a question? Why don't we ever have a supermajority? I mean, what is the problem with these people showing up at the meetings?
No, it's not, actually, it's not that that's not what happened at all. So the former Board of Adjustment member, Sergio, he went to the planning board, and then Dan Perlman, he also resigned because his workload was a lot. And then it might be an issue. So what happens sometimes is people need to step away and recuse themselves. So even though we have those extra 2 spaces open, there might be vacation schedules. There could be people that have to step away from certain applications. And that, believe it or not, the recusal on applications happens more times than we even realize. I think that it happens often just based on who the architect is, who the engineers are, where the property is, so it happens, and this will at least allow these applications to move forward.
Yeah, I don't know the reasons I don't know the reasons, so that's something you might be able to find out from Jane,
So Matt, though,
the board secretary.
I think it's not, technically, is it that they need the supermajority present, or is it that they're entitled to a full board?
They only need, you can only appoint, by statute, you're only allowed to appoint the number of members from the planning board that are needed for the minimum number of a quorum for that application.
Okay.
So you would need a 5-member board as a quorum for a use variance application.
But typically, on a use variance, an applicant wants at least 7 there. They're going to take a head count.
Typically, yes.
Right.
However, we're taking care of our end by doing it this way, because that way we are providing them with a hearing.
Okay.
If they want to extend it until, some other date, whether it be November, December, January, whatever they want to do, that's up to them. But we have to take care of our statutory obligation to provide them with a hearing, and that's why we have to do it.
Okay. So that's all, it's only as if when needed. Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
All right.
So
So
the,
actually, let me actually just finish my thought. So just to keep this, Matt, why don't you, if you want to talk to Bruce Whitaker on that and just figure out who he needs, and then we can communicate that to Jane Wondergem. And this
All right, I just figured the board secretary would be the one who knew, Bruce, probably before anybody else, who would be present and who wouldn't be present, but I'll do whatever. I can talk to Bruce about it and see what he wants.
Okay. All right, good, thank you.
Okay. The next item is authorizing an agreement with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for Safe Routes to School federal aided grant. So this resolution will approve and authorize the execution of the federal aid agreement with the NJDOT for the Safe Routes to School project.
Just an FYI, because I'm near one of these intersections, I did get the notice that the village sent out.
Ah,
I did get it in the mail.
That's good. The meeting is still on for August 12th.
Right, there's a hearing, public hearing on August 12th.
Yeah.
good.
All right.
6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and it looks like they're going to do presentations at 6:05 and 7:05.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Chris is saying yes, so.
As far as I know, yes.
And that's here in this building?
It's
In this room?
in this room.
In this room, yes.
All right, so the August 11th public meeting agenda, we have 2 proclamations declaring September Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month and declaring September National Preparedness Month. We have a public hearing on the adoption of pre-qualification regulations for the general restoration contractors, which will apply to the anticipated bid for the interior restoration of the Zabriskie Shedler House. There are no introductions or public hearings for Ridgewood Water and no resolutions. Ordinance introduction, we have amending firefighters and fire superior officers salary ordinance, and also amending Chapter 265 vehicles and traffic for motorcycle parking at Hudson Street Garage. So the ordinance for public hearing is amending Chapter 265 Vehicles and Traffic for establishing stop signs at Hanks Avenue and Gordon Road at Brookside Avenue. Resolutions include Title 59 approval and award of contract for leaf collection services, Title 59 approval and award of contract for snow plowing services, Title 59 approval and award of contract for tree removal services, award of contract under state contract for the 2021 Ford F-250 for the Police Department, awarding a contract under Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing contract for the 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe for the Police Department, awarding contract under state contract for the lease of the 2021 Ford Explorer for the Health Department, awarding contract under Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing contract for the street sweeper for the Streets Department, awarding contract under the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing contract for the turf equipment lifts for fleet services, awarding a resolution for award of the professional services contract for the master plan, authorizing a shared services agreement for disposal of dewatering sludge with Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission. This is year 2 of a 3-year agreement. Opposition, we're going to take that one off. The next one is authorization of eminent domain, urging reinstatement of state and local tax deduction, amend resolution for endorsement of community development block grant for Care Plus, appoint zoning board of adjustment members on a temporary basis. We also have rescinding resolution 21-240, which is a professional service contract and direct planning board to do the study for the Valley Hospital property, awarding the professional service contract and directing the planning board to do the study for the Valley Hospital property, and approve and authorize execution of agreement with NJDOT for the Safe Routes to School grant. Were there any of those that you would like off of the consent agenda?
Yeah, could you do the eminent domain and the Passaic Valley?
Sure. We're not going to do Passaic Valley
Oh,
at
you're
this
not gonna
time.
do it?
Not at
Okay,
this
I
time.
thought that was in there.
Yeah. Sure.
And also the resolution on
Salt.
salt.
Okay, sure. Okay, so that's all I have.
Okay. That's it? Anything else? All right, with that, we'll go back to public comment, not to exceed 5 minutes per person. Anyone? Great, nothing? All right, with that, we'll take a resolution to go into closed session.
So
Okay.
moved.
Have to be read first. It's okay.
Oops.
Stumped again.
Be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on August 4, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the caucus room of Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. And be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include MVA settlement and personnel matters to include boards and committees, FMBA. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 SEC, and be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?